It was just another quiet Sunday. The kind where nothing much happens, just the hum of normal life. The scent of freshly laundered clothes hung in the air, coffee steamed gently between us, and soft music floated from her phone. We were folding laundry together, caught in one of those small, comforting domestic moments that usually feel grounding. That's when she said it, so casually, like she was mentioning the weather. Sometimes I wonder if I should have ended up with Daniel instead. At first, I thought I'd misheard her. I waited for a chuckle, a smirk, some hint that it was a joke. But none came. She simply kept folding the towel in her hands, her eyes on the fabric, her voice calm and distant. Like she wasn't even talking to me, just thinking out loud. "What did you say?" I asked, my voice low but edged with disbelief. She looked up, unaffected. "I just think maybe life would have been easier. He made me feel seen. He had drive. He didn't just settle for this." Her hand swept vaguely around, motioning to our house, our life, everything we'd built together. Like it was all somehow not enough. I didn't reply. Didn't fight back. Something inside me pulled tight, a slow twist of pain I didn't know how to name. I walked away and went downstairs, trying to convince myself I was overthinking it, that maybe I'd misunderstood. But she didn't follow. She didn't clarify. No soft words like, "I didn't mean it that way." Nothing. That night, I slept on the couch, not because she asked me to, but because the thought of lying next to someone who made me feel so easily replaceable was unbearable. I lay there in the dark, wondering how many nights she'd quietly compared me to a man who hadn't been in her life for years. Daniel, the guy from college. The one with charisma and ambition. The one who promised her the world, then vanished overseas for a job, leaving her shattered. I was the one who stayed, the one who picked up the pieces. And yet, all these years later, she was still imagining a life with him. After that night, something shifted in me. I spoke less. I buried myself in work and started coming home later. Sometimes I'd just sit in the car for a while before going inside, needing to steel myself against the silence that waited beyond the front door. She noticed, of course, asked me what was wrong. I'd just say, "I'm fine." But I wasn't. I was retreating, one quiet moment at a time, behind a wall I no longer wanted to tear down. I stopped telling her about my day, stopped sharing the little things. Dinner time turned cold, not the food, but the air between us. We weren't arguing. We just weren't connecting anymore. We sat across from each other like polite strangers. And always, Daniel lingered in the background like a ghost I couldn't exorcise. Then one night, she came home late. No text. No call. Just hours gone. When she finally walked through the door, she looked uneasy, like she had something to hide. "I ran into an old friend," she said, her voice too careful. "We had drinks." "Was it him?" I asked. She nodded. I didn't yell. Didn't make a scene. I simply walked to the bedroom, packed a small bag, not out of anger, but because I realized there was nothing left to fight for. Before I walked out, I told her, "Maybe you should figure out what it is you truly want." She opened her mouth to respond, but I held up a hand. "I'm not angry," I said. "I'm just done. No drama." I left quietly. I stayed with a friend for a while, then found my own place. She called a few times, sent long messages, trying to explain, told me her words had come out wrong. I didn't reply. And in that silence, something unexpected happened. I started to feel lighter. Yes, there was loneliness, but there was also relief. I began waking up early, going for runs, cooking my own meals. Slowly, I started remembering who I was before I bent myself to fit into the space she'd carved out. I saw how much of myself I had lost, just trying to be enough for someone who had always kept part of herself somewhere else. Eventually, I filed for separation. not out of bitterness, but clarity. We both needed distance. Then one day, out of nowhere, she showed up at my door. She looked worn, like someone who had finally seen the cost of their choices. She told me she'd seen Daniel again. They hadn't spoken, just crossed paths. And in that fleeting moment, she realized he hadn't changed. Still charming, still chasing illusions, still unreachable. She looked at me, eyes full of tears. I was wrong, she said. I thought I wanted excitement. I wanted to feel chosen. But what we had, that was real. You showed up. You stayed. And I broke that. And I believed her. But some truths come too late. Because by the time someone finally sees your worth, you might have already learned how to stop needing their validation. I didn't hate her. I couldn't. But I also wasn't the man standing in that kitchen months ago, wounded and waiting. I had grown. I had healed. And I refused to go back to the version of myself who thought love had to be earned through suffering. So I looked her in the eyes and said, "I'm glad you see it now. But I'm not coming back." She collapsed to her knees, sobbing. I didn't slam the door. I closed it softly. Because for the first time, I wasn't clinging to what had been. I was choosing peace, for the man I had finally become.